Hey everybody, I am going to do a little mark making today with some of my stamps that I carved out of erasers from the dollar store. And I kind of wanted to walk you through it, explain my process, show the materials that I use, the simple ways that I make marks. So I grabbed out some paper that I'll be using. Again, I kind of like to work small, so I end up, probably the biggest piece I have here, I'll probably end up cutting in half, but that's what I'm working with. I grabbed a few packs of erasers from the dollar store. This is a great time of year, all the back to school supplies. You can sometimes pick these up for $1/4 for 4 of them. So I have those. I couldn't find my good carving speedball tool, but I do have this cheaper version. There's one that's like maroon color on the bottom that's plastic, and it has kind of a bottom compartment for your carving tips. This is, I think this one's like $8. So this is what I have today. I also grabbed out a couple sharp tools. If you don't have one of these on hand, you can definitely play around with some different cutting surfaces. So before we start the carving, I kind of wanted to show you the marks that we get from these, and what I use to achieve a good mark. And really, again, like I always say, I like the organic marks, so I'm not looking for perfection here. Many of these are just 10 years old, and I go through, they last a long time. I go through every once in a while and refresh them and carve more, but these are great little pieces to have for collaging and your journals, and to die and to add to. It's just kind of all the same techniques that I used for, you know, a lot of this collage material. And I like to just make stacks and stacks of this, and then I'll add coffee dye or tea dye or some different plant dyes, and more marks, and it just builds this layer and the story within your artwork and within your journals. It's just super beautiful and deep and emotion invoking, and kind of tells a story without words, which I like too. So I grabbed out my jelly plates. I like to use these for stamping, an ink and a plain ink, because they give, and they're just great little tools to have around for mark making. So you can use India ink for this. You could use a black paint. I'm going to start with the India ink. I also grabbed out just some cheap black ink. We'll try that and see how that turns out. And then black gesso. This is kind of old, so this might be a no-go. I also like to use this to stamp with. It's golden acrylic. This is Payne's Gray. I kind of prefer to work with Payne's Gray because it's not so like dark, but India ink's my favorite. It's very color fast, and it takes, like, when you dye more on top of it, it takes to that. So I use these to underneath my stamp, and I'm gonna go grab my big one because I think I'll need it today. So I'm gonna use this one as my stamping pad for my ink and my paint, and I'm gonna use this one to as my surface to stamp into. And I do that because it's softer. My table's a little rough, so I don't get as good of an imprint when I do that. But I'm just gonna pick one of these out, kind of like this one, and just gonna drip a little bit of this on there. And this is, again, playfulness and seeing what happens. Move this up a little. Oh, these are also erasers that I got at the dollar store. So bigger, if you can get your hands on some bigger erasers. So I will load up my stamp using that. And I'm gonna just fill up this whole page with this. This is just a very fun technique to do when you're not sure. I kind of been running into a little creative like lull in my life right now. I think everybody's kind of feeling that with everything going on. So I've been doing a lot more of just making material for when I'm ready to make a piece of art, or when I'm ready to journal more. And so you can see this is kind of varying now because I have less ink on my ink pad. So I'll add a little more. And this ink goes really far. So if you live in a dry climate like I do too, you can keep a little bottle, or like a little spray bottle, and mist that down a little bit too. That'll add some life to your pad and to your ink so it doesn't dry out so fast. So there's my first piece. That was just really quick. I love, it looks like a basket. I just love the graphicness of this. As you can see, I stamped on, or I carved on both sides of this. But let's play around with it where we kind of go back and forth and make different patterns. And you can use these so many ways. It's really fun. So I like that I'm getting like a little bit of a distressed look as my ink's running out. So I'm just gonna keep going with that. And try and go off the edges. So let's see. So that was using it back and forth. And you can see I have some stamping that kind of went off the sides, and I like to use that up too. So if you have a little bit bigger piece, go ahead and make a print of that. Soak up some of that so you're not missing out on. And sometimes these are just my favorites. Not thinking about it as much. So let's move on to a different. Let's do that one. Do some really small pieces. More looks like a wood grain to me. And this particular one I used gesso on last, so I'm getting more of like a rustic pattern, but still really cool. Very useful in collage work. So yeah. So let's see, let's take a different approach with a little bit different material. This is just cheap craft paint. I'm going to put it on top of the Indie ink, so it's going to pick up a little bit of that too. And then brush it in there. This one's got a little flower, so let's see. This is a little of a more delicate and I'm going to flip it back and forth to get that. This is like a half flower, so I'm going to try and get it to print a little bit differently here. So you can see the paint, the craft paint works really well too. And the pattern's real fun. And I think having the jelly plate under it does really make a difference. So, and again, not perfection, just running a little bit low. I'm going to add a little bit more paint to my ink pad. And I love the variation I'm getting on that. Right, here's this one, really pretty. So that's kind of the technique I use for stamping. It's pretty simple. You can use any colors you want. You can stick with black and white, try different pages. Let's try a piece of vintage paper real quick and see. Add in this Indie ink. And let's do this one. So I am just gonna go down the same way on this one. that turned out really good. The other thing the jelly plate helps with is it keeps your paper in place. So I love these. So that's the technique. You can do a myriad of things, like all different, you can use different ones and just have fun with it. I'm going to just show you a quick demo on how I do this and where I get my inspiration. So these are great little tools, inexpensive, available. You might even have some in your junk drawers already. And I like, there's different sizes. I love this size because the way I work is a little bit smaller. So they just go real quick and easy. So sometimes I draw on these to kind of get us started, but I was going through some of my catalogs and trying to get inspired with patterns. So I really liked this pattern. This is a Johnny Was catalog, and there's just a lot of great pattern and color and inspiration with textiles and jewelry. So that's one of the places that I get inspiration. Of course, Pinterest is a great place, and Instagram, and those two. But so I'm going to kind of go with this heart and line, and sometimes if I'm like trying to replicate that, I will use a little bit of a guidance, but sometimes I just go organically. And just go for it. So these look like hearts, and then there's like a little round thing between it. So I'm gonna just somewhat, I'm not trying to copy it exactly. I mean, this is just my inspiration. So don't get too caught up in trying to make it perfect. This is just a regular pencil and it writes just fine on here. So I got a little bit off track, but I'm going to fix that as I go through. And this is the tool I'm going to be using. I used the smallest tip that was in the kit. I think that's the next one up, but let's see how this works. And really all you're going to do is just hold it real still, and you're going to carve out either from around the mark, or you're going to carve the mark out. And I'm going to do this one for sake, it's a little bit easier to carve the mark. So I'm going to do that. And it's just very easy to carve. I'll maybe go, there's like really no rhyme or reason, I think, for me. I'm sure there is if you do this more often. But I do love when it's more like hand-drawn, organic looking. Since I'm doing a video, we're gonna just kind of go quickly so I can print this and show you how it turns out. And you really don't have to take much of the material out. You don't have to push super hard. Medium pressure, I would say. It's very satisfying. So to get these little jobbers, I'm just gonna take out. Kind of an oval shape, like a half oval, and it's pretty delicate, so we will see how it turns out. I think it's going to be a little more rustic then. But maybe I'll just go at it as like a whole circle. And the cool thing about these too is like you get done and then you can print it and then you can go back in after you print it and then pull out any other little places that didn't maybe work so good or... Okay, so that's my design. I like to carve off these edges for when I'm printing so it's not so stark because you're going to get the ink's going to pick up on the outside. So if you just kind of carve this off, you're going to get a little bit more organic looking edges. And I'll show you here what I mean. And like this happens to be, I kind of went a little more on that side. So that'll even that out a little bit too. This is probably not the safest thing to do, but be careful. Okay, so another thing I do keep on hand, which I'm really bad about cleaning things, but like I said, I've used these really long, so they're very durable. I'm going to add the India ink to my palette. Let's go ahead and print this and see how it turned out. And if your ink pad starts getting like bumpy or it's not printing well, you know, just do a quick cleanup. Super cute. Let's just keep going with that. And these can be cut out individually or used as a whole. I love it. It looks like old upholstery fabric or I'll just go in. There, get that off. But yeah, so that's a really simple technique for mark making and pattern making. These make beautiful fabrics also. You could do like a whole towel for your kitchen. But really fun, easy technique and something that I enjoy doing quite a bit. So thanks for watching me work today, and I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on mark making with inexpensive materials.